4, Appendix, the philosophical concept of property. Philosophers generally perceive property to be an instrument for pursuing fundamental values. Some philosophers of property have concentrated on its ability to advance values such as utility, justice, self-expression, and social evolution. These traditions of thought have influenced the law. This appendix introduces the reader to 4 of these traditions and relates them to the economic analysis of property. 1. Utilitarianism. Utilitarians measure the value of a good or an act by the net pleasure or satisfaction that it creates. For utilitarians, the purpose of the institution of property is to maximize the total pleasure or satisfaction obtained from material and other resources. Bentham thus defines property as an expectation of utility. Property is nothing but a basis of expectation, the expectation of deriving advantages from a thing which we are said to possess in consequence of the relation in which we stand toward it. Superscript 28, which reads, Jeremy Bentham, Theory of Legislation, Principles of the Code, 111 to 113. Hildreth, ed. 1931. The objective of maximizing total utility constitutes a standard against which property rules can be evaluated. In our examples at the beginning of the chapter, each of the disputes could be resolved by utilitarian grounds by establishing a legal rule that seeks to maximize the sum of utilities or pleasure of society as a whole. The utilitarian approach makes a person's claim to property tentative. It can be taken from him in principle if the beneficiaries of the expropriation gain more in utility than the owner loses. Suppose, for example, that a young man is living with his aged parents in their home. On utilitarian grounds, the young son may be excused for throwing the parents out of the home if their loss in utility from being dispossessed is less than his gain in utility from having them out of the house. Critics of utilitarianism have often wondered whether the theory makes ownership too tentative. Isn't ownership more than an expectation? Do we really think that a person could be rightfully deprived of his property just because the loss is more than offset by the gain to others? This objection to the utilitarian theory of property applies with equal force to the conventional economic theory that holds the purpose of property is to maximize wealth. Isn't ownership more than a right to a stream of income? Do we really think that a person could be rightfully deprived of her property just because the loss of wealth is more than offset by the gain in wealth to others?